5, it looks like Missouri voters will decide on sports betting this fall. The Winning for Missouri Education Coalition turned in enough signatures on its petition to legalize sport betting. You can see the boxes and boxes of signatures right there. Joe McLean is in Jefferson City tonight. He breaks down the amendment and the safeguards included in it.
With some high-profile help on Thursday, the campaign Winning for Missouri Education turned in more than 340,000 signatures to have voters decide whether to legalize wagering on professional sports.
Missouri is one step away now from making sure that we have a safe, responsible way for Missourians to participate in sports betting while generating tens of millions of dollars every year for Missouri classrooms.
The ballot question will ask voters whether they want to let Missouri's 13 casinos and 6 professional sports franchises offer in-person and online wagering, but only to those 21 and older.
It is a way of energizing our fan bases. It's becoming in vogue across the country, and we are missing out on it in Missouri.
Those bets would be taxed at 10%, regulated by the Missouri Gaming Commission. The first $5 million of that revenue would go to the state's Compulsive Gambling Prevention Fund, and the rest to fund K-12 and higher education. Problem gambling has been the main concern among opponents of legalization.
There's not enough money in there for problem compulsive gambling, which is going to be caused by a legalization of sports betting here in the state. So this is definitely a golden ticket for all of the casinos and professional sports teams.
Senator Denny Hoskins was one of 5 senators this week who staged a days-long filibuster to make passing initiatives like sports betting more difficult. State Representative Dan Hux, another Republican, has sponsored sports betting legislation for the last few years.
People go across the state line. I know friends in Kansas City. They go across, they spend the day during football season, college football, over at Topgolf. They spend 4 or 5 hours, a couple of burgers, some drinks. We're losing out on that money also.
And Democrats agree.
Several of our citizens cross over to every bordering state except for one that has legalized sports wagering. So, you know, as always, the citizens will work around us when we don't do what they ask us to do.
Now, if the Secretary of State's office verifies enough signatures, the question will go on the November 5th ballot.